Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. It's good to see you, Mr. Secretary. Can we start with FAA type stuff, and then we'll get to this politics stuff a little bit later. Tomorrow's Thursday is a big night. We understand that. We'll get to that as quickly as possible. But number one, I guess JetBlue. You agree with that? It's good for consumers that's not going to happen with Spirit.
Yeah, we weighed in as a department to back up the Department of Justice, largely because of concerns about what has happened over the years in the airline industry. You know, back at the time of deregulation, it was confidently predicted that there would be about 100 major competitive airlines in the United States by the turn of the century. Obviously, things worked out differently. We have had fewer and fewer airlines, more and more concentration, more and more consolidation, and that has an effect on consumers. And so just like across the administration, we're taking a tougher line on antitrust, really concerned about what's happening to consumers in any sector, including travel and tourism. This is one where we had a lot of concerns, stood with the DOJ. And I think right now, having more airlines rather than less airlines, more competition rather than less competition, is good for passengers.
The latest on that other issue we talked about, and it's not Spirit Airlines, Spirit AeroSystems, so it gets a little bit confusing. But there's some talk maybe Boeing just finally buys Spirit back in. But at this point, the FAA, I think, has been visiting both companies, and it's going to continue on-site presence at both Boeing and Spirit. What needs to happen? Do they report back to you on what they're finding? How do you fix quality issues that seem like they might be more than just a one-off?
Yeah, there was an intense round of visits. We had FAA boots on the ground a few days ago. The administrator met with the senior leadership of Boeing, communicated some real concerns about what seems to be their inability to comply with the kind of quality control practices that FAA expects of them, and gave them 90 days to present a comprehensive plan and show how they're going to move forward to cure these issues. Look, this is something that is obviously of critical importance, and we're going to come at all of this from the perspective of safety. It is no accident, no pun intended. It's no accident that we have gone 15 years without a fatal crash of an airliner. That's the result of an extremely rigorous standard when it comes to not just the way these planes are designed, not just the way they're flown, but also the way that they're manufactured. Anytime something's out of compliance, that puts that record at risk. We never take for granted there's this incredible fact that flying through the air is actually the safest way to travel in the United States of America. Keeping it that way is going to require Boeing to step up and FAA to keep Boeing under a microscope, including this tough step that was unprecedented of limiting how many aircraft they can produce in a month until they can demonstrate that if they want to do a higher number, they can do it safely.
Boeing got a big order yesterday from American, and maybe they can get through all this. But it's been a tough couple of years. Stock is down about 50% or so. It's an important company, maybe one of our greatest manufacturing companies in this country, I think, Mr. Secretary. What do they need to do? Do you think that it makes sense if they were to buy Spirit AeroSystems back? Is that a better way to handle these issues?
I haven't weighed in on their business structure. I think for them, that's a business decision. For us, any interest we have in that has to do with safety. You're right. The economic importance of this company is enormous. Not long ago, I was in the Pacific Northwest. I was in Vancouver, Washington, meeting with high schoolers who were in a tech program to get them ready for the trades. And one of the students, we were asking them, what they were up to. One of the students' eyes lit up when he let us know that he was about to have his second round of competing for an internship to go work at Boeing. We know how important that is for the economy, but really on our side of the house, and certainly FAA's side of the house, it's 100% a conversation about safety. And of course, doing the right thing on safety, having the right safety culture is one of the things that's going to be necessary for the long-term health of Boeing as a business too.
We'll switch gears now. On Thursday, we will hear the State of the Union from the president, and there have been some expectations built up, I think, among Democrats and President Biden's supporters that it's an important State of the Union. But we're in very, obviously, divisive times, very strange times. If you look at the GDP, I know you could bring that up, how well we've seen growth hold up when we thought a recession was coming. We've seen unemployment well below historic levels, at historic lows. And frequently, it's been pointed out the disconnect between how the economy is doing, new highs in the stock market, and the perception of the job President Biden has done on the economy. And I know you had to have seen these polls this week. They were kind of staggering, kind of shocking from the likes of the New York Times or CBS or Ipsos in terms of not only not giving the president credit, but really nasty. 18% say the president's policies have benefited them economically. Even among women, 20% more say Trump's policies benefited them than Biden's. What do you attribute that to, and how do you fix that?
Well, you're right. When you look at the numbers across our economy, all-time highs in the stock market, record job creation, unemployment that hasn't been this low for this long since before I was born, you see so many good things happening that we want to tell the story for. And I'm one of those who definitely believes the president deserves more credit for those achievements. Part of how you do that is you got to go out there and take credit for those achievements. And I think you'll see the president in the State of the Union talking about what's been achieved. You're definitely going to see cabinet members like me continuing to go out across the country, pointing to the projects that are getting done, the Blatnick Bridge being redone in Minnesota, Wisconsin is just one example out of 40,000 that we're highlighting right now. But look, people are also frustrated, and I get it. People are generally frustrated with the negativity they see every time they see coverage of Washington. That's why Congress right now has an approval rating. Last time I checked was, I think, in the 20s. So we need to make sure that we highlight the things that are going right and continue to pay attention to the things that are going wrong and lay out the plan and make clear who's trying to get progress and who's trying to actually solve those problems versus just use them to score political points. I mean, it was especially disappointing to see what happened with the border, right? You got congressional GOP, talked about the border every chance they got. So you would think they would be interested in addressing it. And yet, when a bipartisan bill put together by one of the most conservative members of the Senate and Democrats working, negotiating, making tough decisions that both of their respective bases were going to have trouble with, came and hammered that out. It looked like there was going to be a chance to do something real with real resources at the border, only for Donald Trump, who's not even an elected official, to come in and kill it with the chill that he put on congressional Republicans. So, yeah, we can either solve problems or we can have them be political football.
So the whole move to try to come up with something by the administration and obviously bipartisan, that didn't come until it became clear it was going to be a major campaign issue. And only then did the Biden administration get interested in it. And every time I hear those talking... Hold on,
let's be clear here,
Let me finish first. But every time we hear those talking points that suddenly it was Republicans who ruined the border, that's why people get so frustrated. We know what President Biden said about inviting people in. We know that he got rid of all the things that were keeping the border closed that President Trump had put in. We know that he got rid of all those. So when you say it's not his fault,
that's literally not true. It's literally not true that he got rid of the veterans. It's true he got rid of family separation.
Did you see 7.2 million people come in during the Trump administration? It was a trickle.
He got rid of the policy to tear children out of the arms of their parents. That's true. But it is not true. Some of the other things that have been suggested. Let's be clear. Bipartisan efforts at border reform have taken place in 2015, 2006. I mean, literally since the Reagan administration, right? There have been bipartisan efforts to get something done here. But I really believe we've gotten to the point where many congressional Republicans find it so useful as a cudgel that they would rather keep the problem going for political uses than solve the problem and risk the chance that the president could share in the credit for that. In the same way that we see some of them, even though we had great bipartisan cooperation on the infrastructure bill that I work on, a lot of them who were against that, only to turn around and try to get credit for it when we actually have a ribbon cutting or a groundbreaking.
The reason that some of these numbers stay where they are is because it just seems like instead of actually owning some of the issues that we have, instead of acknowledging that the president maybe has lost a step, the administration keeps saying, "Don't believe your lying eyes," and that's why you're
respectfully,
that's why you're at 18%.
Respectfully, I think congressional Republicans are saying, "Don't believe your lying eyes," which is why they're polling at about 15% right now.
I know
Look,
that
right
Congress
now,
is never. Congress isn't running.
We have
for
economic numbers.
for president.
Is it my lying eyes that under Joe Biden we've had the most job creation in American history? Is it my lying eyes telling us that unemployment and inflation are both below 4% and have been that way for the longest time in who knows when? Is it reality or is it spin? To point out the fact that manufacturing jobs are up under this president and we're down under the last president. These are matters of simple fact.
When we heard for 3 years that the border's closed and it's secure, and Mayorkas said it's closed, and 7.2 million people have come into where our big cities have no idea how to handle this. And then you hear from the administration
here's the thing.
that it's not their fault.
This is really important. This is really important, okay? The common sense position, and the position that, by the way, a lot of moderate Democrats and moderate Republicans would always say, the kinds of things that you hear at the Chamber of Commerce in Indiana, where I come from, is that there ought to be more legal immigration and less illegal immigration. And yet when there's a chance to actually do that, that's not what happened. The last administration cut legal immigration. And meanwhile, our economy is pulling people just as much as terrible conditions in Latin America are pushing people. And when there's finally a bipartisan compromise that would help address at least some of those issues, congressional Republicans couldn't get it done because Donald Trump, who's not even in elected office, killed it. That is a fact.
That we'll see whether this moves the needle. I just think the American public just wants something that benefits them. They just don't want to hear
so do we.
That what they see isn't happening, Mr. Secretary. But we appreciate your time.